in the Bible, the Jew requires a sign. But Warren Marcus, this is so hard to believe. You were in Toronto, Canada, and you saw one of the greatest miracles I've ever heard of. Tell me about that.
We were just filming a regular conference. They had an intercession that's like prayer and such. And all of a sudden, people started having gold teeth or gold caps. Their fillings changed instantly. And it was just a little prayer this man said, and they laid their hands on their mouths, and all of a sudden, this thing started taking place.
How many people had gold teeth that
weekend? Over 300 that week, but it was amazing. It was like electric. I mean, you were sitting there, and I'm in a truck, and I had to come out of the truck because we were producing in the background with these 6 cameras.
You had to see it yourself.
Well, I had to say, what is going on? Because it was, people were screaming, and in the women's room you hear, ah! As they looked in mirrors. I mean, it was electric. I never experienced anything like that in my life. And so real. I mean, people who 1 second didn't have gold teeth, the next second they had somebody next to them look in their mouths and they said, "You have gold." "No, you're kidding me." "No, you have gold." "No, come on, you're kidding me." They'd run to the bathroom or they'd run up on the stage to have them confirm this. And it was just incredible.
You actually took the television camera and put it in their mouth.
Right. Well, what we saw was, as this is happening, I said, "You better get one of the camera, get them up there now. Let's see what this is," because I wanted to see what was going on.
Did you want to see what was going on as a professional to get it on film, or did you just want to see what was going on?
Well, you have to realize that I didn't just automatically believe this. I've seen a lot of things in my life. I just said, is this real? But knowing the people that I knew, the pastor of that church and such, they're so low key. This is not usually the type of thing that happens there. So knowing their character, and knowing some of the people that I knew that were there, like a pastor, my first pastor, who when I had started believing in Yeshua, Jesus, he was there for the first time in Toronto. He's telling me that one of his members got that. And so when you know people that wouldn't normally fall for something, you have to say, this is something to this. This is something real.
You told me about a Muslim man that wandered in. Tell me about it.
There was a Muslim man that wandered into Toronto. He was invited by somebody, his whole family, and they prayed, and he got 3 teeth that were gold, fillings that were changed to gold. And because of it, he said, this Jesus must be real.
You know, that is the real purpose for a sign. You produced a 30-minute video, and people that watch this video actually are getting gold teeth. Let's take a look at that video right now.
You want to see? Well, then you'll have to, I don't know how we'll do this, but anyway, have you got a mirror yourself? Open your mouth for me. There they are. See, on the top is gold too.
No, it's not. I looked in my mouth. I had my husband look at my mouth the first time. And there was nothing happened. But then the Lord said to me, "Tell him to look again." So I said, "Okay, Lord." So he did. And he said, "Yeah, it was changing." I didn't believe him. And then somebody gave me a mirror, and it was really there. Did you see it? Did you see it?
I did.
See it?
It's amazing, isn't it?
Real, it's not going away, right?
Right. It's there. It's yours.
Something, I don't want to stop watching that video. Warren, it must have been, you said it was like electric in that place.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, to experience that, to see people, I mean, you know, the testimonies of people, but the bottom line, Sid, wasn't just a miracle. It's what happened to people because of the miracle. All of a sudden, they knew that there was a God who created the universe, who was there, present, doing these things. And you know what that does? It says that any problem I'm facing, no matter how big it is, God can do something about it. He's not just some dispassionate God or someone impersonal or just an idol that someone prays. He's real, living being that could change my life forever.
Speaking of changing your life forever, Warren Marcus, you've come a long way. Tell me about your family, religious-wise.
Well, my mother was brought up in an Orthodox Jewish home, and my father was just the opposite, agnostic Jewish home. As a matter of fact, his father said he was an atheist, but on his deathbed, of course, he called for the rabbi to pray for him. But that's the upbringing, and there was always a tension in the home about religious education and such like that.
As a young boy, though, you had a dream. Tell me about that.
Well, I was 5 years old, and I was frightened of lightning and thunder, and I came running into my house crying, and my sister, my agnostic Jewish sister, said, "Don't be afraid, Warren. You know, God will protect you." And I said, "God? Well, you can't see God, Warren, but He's everywhere, and He's there to protect you. He lives in a place called heaven, and you don't have to be afraid." And I said, "Well, is He in my bedroom at night? You know?" And she said, "Yes, He's there at night." And I started getting more afraid of this unseen person named God than I was of the lightning and thunder. And I had this dream. I can still remember this dream even now as I speak to you. And I was in the clouds. It was thunder and lightning. It was very frightening. And then this light in the center, right in front of me, this light, this intense light was revealed as clouds departed from around them, from around that light, and just parted out. And then these beams of light came out towards me and all around me, making a pathway. And I was like being drawn in, and I heard this voice inside me and outside me saying, "Don't be afraid, I am your friend." And I knew that was God, because the feeling I got when I woke up, I wanted to get back in that dream so quickly. A little 5-year-old boy. And the next day in kindergarten class, the teacher says, "Draw a picture." So I started trying to draw this picture of God that I had seen in my dream with a yellow crayon. And this other kid says, "Well, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's that supposed to be?" I said, "It's a picture." "Picture what?" "Picture of God." "You can't draw a picture of God." "Why not?" He says, "Because you can't see God." Well, I saw God. But there was something there, and I started praying a prayer, Sid, faithfully every night. "God, make me a really good filmmaker, a producer, director, and I will make films that say what you want me to say. Not what I want to say, but what you want me to say." I didn't even know who He was, and I didn't know what He wanted to say, but that was my prayer.
So you're in Hebrew school, you're preparing for bar mitzvah, and all of a sudden, a little kid raises his hand. Teacher, what happened?
Aaron, he was a troublemaker in the class.
There's always one.
And he says, "Rabbi, is Jesus our Messiah?"
In your Hebrew
in my
class?
Hebrew class. So I just, all of a sudden, I came awake, and I said, and I'm looking at this, and he says, "No, Jesus was not our Messiah." He said, "Well, was He a Jew?" And he says, "Of course He was a Jew." And I go, "Wait a minute, I didn't even know He was alive. And if he was alive, he wouldn't be a Jew. He'd be a Catholic or something, I mean,
course.
but a Jew." And then he said, "Well, but he was not our Messiah." He said, "He was a nice man. He was a reformer. Some say he was even a prophet, but he was not the Messiah. The wolf must lay down with the lamb. There must be perfect peace on the earth, and then Messiah will come." Now, I never want to hear his name mentioned in his class again. And that blew me away.
Why?
He said he was a nice man. He was Jewish. He was a reformer. Some say even he was a prophet. But why can't we talk about him anymore? So I went to the library
question.
on my bicycle.
How old were you?
I was 12 years old, preparing for bar mitzvah. And I went on my bicycle, went to the library, found a book, looked up Jesus Christ, found this book. I can't find it to this day, as if it's written to a Jewish kid, saying that he's Yeshua HaMashiach. His name is Yeshua, meaning Jehovah saves. And it gave the meaning, and it told me the prophecies, the many prophecies like Isaiah 53 and such, the prophecies that were there in the Bible, that in the Old Covenant, that was written there, that proclaimed Jesus as Messiah. And I said, after I read that book, I said, "Mom, Jesus is our Messiah."
What'd she say?
She said, "What's a Messiah?" She didn't know. And I said, "He's the one that we're waiting for. The promised one." She goes, "Oh, where did you get that from?" I said, "A book in the library, Mom. Not a Jehovah's Witness or something like that, But the key is that nobody was there to tell me how to get him in my heart. You see, there's one thing to have a knowledge that he is the Messiah. It's another to have that supernatural connection between you and God. And no one was there to tell me how to get that.
So you wandered into drugs, into the anti-war, and all of these things, and you were actually working, or was it going to school in New York?
Well, I started off going to school in New York, School of Visual Arts, to take my film, and it was a den of iniquity. People on drugs, all kinds of stuff, the anti-war movement. I got involved in everything. See, when you don't have God there, you don't have somebody to tell you the right direction, the devil then comes in, and there is a devil. There is an anti-God force in this world, supernatural force, and he was spinning this web of destruction in my life, trying to steal that which God wanted. But God has protection on me because he had people there on the streets holding up signs, repent and be saved, giving me tracts. I mean, it was deluged with this. And in Port Authority, New York, where I traveled from New York to New Jersey during school, and then later on, as I was producing on Madison Avenue, these high-quality spots and such like that, TV spots for deodorant and
real important things.
Right. This one man was there, and he would be sharing with me every single argument I had. He'd be taking one at a time for 7 years.
7 years?
7 years.
You're a stiff-necked Jew.
I was. I was. And then he just kept telling me, but the thing he finally told me, Sid, see, he said, you understand this intellectually. You accept the fact that he could be the Messiah. But Warren, you'll never understand that he is the Son of the living God. You'll never understand who he really is until you invite him in your heart. And I said, well, what do you mean invite him in my heart? He says, he's like a salesman. He comes with this greatest product, and he's knocking on the door of your heart. And he's saying, I want to come in and demonstrate this product. I want to plug it into and show you how well it cleans your house. It's called the Holy Spirit. And he said, and Warren, he wants to plug it in because your house really needs cleaning. And he said, but until you invite him in to demonstrate the product, you'll never truly understand the beauty of what this thing is all about. And Sid, that's what I did. I finally got so fed up. I was smoking marijuana every day. I mean, I said, there's got to be more, Lord. And I just said, God of Israel, if Jesus is indeed the Son of the living God, the Messiah, everything the Christians say he is, then I want him in my heart. If he's not, I don't want him in my heart. I don't want to do anything that would offend you, O God of Israel. You'll have to let me know what is right in this matter, but I invite him in my heart right now. And from that moment on, Sid, something happened to me, supernaturally. All of a sudden, the Bible that I had sitting on my table, I could understand what it meant, concepts that I could never understand before. The music I was listening to, the rock music, I mean, it didn't make sense to me anymore. I am the walrus. I am the Eggman. Goo Goo Gachoo. You know, the Beatles were, what does this have to do with life? You know, I threw it away. I started throwing booze down the sink. I started throwing away my marijuana right down the toilet. I'm saying, I don't need this anymore. My eyes were like opened, and my whole, this peace that surpasses all understanding, it's like the whole key to the universe was unlocked to me. And my wife, my Catholic wife, comes home. She says, what is going on here? So don't throw my record sometime later, but the whole thing was, at first I was scared to tell her, but God took care of that. When I started telling her my testimony of how I was on drugs and various things like that, she was more worried of the fact that I was on drugs. She didn't see the fact, I just saying that I received Jesus as my Messiah. She didn't say anything about that. She says, but I can't understand why you were on drugs. So God has a way of taking care of that. But the big one was my father. I mean, a lot of my family have come to the Lord. I have a cousin who's a pastor. I have a cousin on Greenwich Village beatnik artist who's a believer. You wouldn't believe the numbers of people that came to the Lord, that became a believer in Messiah. But my father was a hard one. He was a drinker all his life and all that. And what happened was he got to the point where he was dying. And my mother said, you better be very careful with Dad. You need to come and see him because he is really dying. But I don't want you to mention anything about him dying to him because we don't want him to lose heart.
What was he dying of?
Cancer. And I was saying, but Mom, I got to tell him about the Lord, you know. And she says, well, Warren, you could tell him about but you can't mention anything about him dying. And so Jerry Falwell, we were right before a show, saw me very down. And he said, Warren, what's going on? Why are you down? I said, well, my dad's dying. And I shared the story. And yet I can't tell him anything. And I said, well, you want me to call him? Jerry said, would you like me to call him and just talk with him? And I said, that can't hurt. So he called him and spoke with my dad. And I didn't realize the effect it had on my dad.
What effect?
He didn't believe it was Jerry Falwell calling him. Plus, there were all these Jewish relatives over my house feeling guilty that my dad's going to die. They were visiting. So my mother says, Jerry Falwell's on the line, Jerry Falwell. And they're all going, Jerry Falwell, why would he call? Why would Jerry Falwell call? My father, he talked with Jerry Falwell. And the thing was, he set up with Jerry. Jerry set up a friendship, a relationship with him. And he wasn't really telling him the gospel. And I'm going, oh, come on, Jerry, tell him the gospel. But he ended praying for my dad's healing and said, can I call you back and see how you're doing? My dad said, well, you don't have to do that, but sure you can. Well, my dad was weeping, my mom told me, on the phone. When he got back, there were tears coming down. And they asked him what happened. He said, Jerry Falwell prayed for me. And they're all saying, wow, Jerry Falwell prayed for you? Well, the next thing I know, Jerry has me on an airplane flying up to New Jersey.
Wow.
He said,
Why did he do that?
He said to my dad, he called him back, and he said, if I come up to visit you, would you allow me to share about the Messiah that your son believes in and your daughter, my sister Fran, believes in also, and your wife believes in now? Would you let me come up there and just share it with you? And he said, well, you don't need to come up here. But that's up to you, but sure, of course.
Why would, he's a busy, you know how busy he is.
I know.
And he just stopped his whole schedule to fly to talk to a dying Jewish man.
Well, it tells you what kind of character he is. People don't know that about Jerry, but I know him. He's a man of God. He's a really good man. And we flew up there, and Jerry started opening up the scriptures to my father. He shared that Isaiah 53 scripture. He shared that, who is this Charlie, he asked, just like you did with your dad. And my father said, well, that's talking about Jesus. He said, well, that's in the Old Covenant scriptures. That's not in the New Testament. My dad said, wow. And all of a sudden, all the things that my sister and I tried to tell my dad and he wouldn't listen to, he was listening with Jerry. And then Jerry said, would you like to receive the Messiah into your own life? Would you like to become a believer in the Messiah? Just like your son is, and just like your daughter is, just like your wife is. Would you like to do that? And he says, yes, I would. And he called up my mother and I to come up. He said, come on, you got to come up. Jerry's going to minister to me. This is what he used the word minister, But I stayed in the kitchen, and I was just praying. And he received the Messiah into his heart, just like I had done. Just as I had done in 1974. And there he was praying. And then I kept saying...
But you weren't there. Are you sure he did?
I stayed in the kitchen. I said, God, is this real? Is he just doing this because Jerry's there? So in the rush of things, we had to leave. I said my goodbyes, and I forgot my briefcase, so I had to run back in. And I prayed, God, let me know, just let me have something that I would know that he is truly a believer. I walk in, and there's my father sitting, my last memory of my father, with this joy. He looked healthy as could be.